Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Thy Strong Word. I'm Pastor AJ Espinosa. We're reading through the entire Bible together out loud, chapter by chapter, and right now, book by book. And this is a really cool book to be taking a look at, Habakkuk. As far as I'm aware, this is something I was checking out. I don't think we've actually had, at least one that's available online anyway, an episode on any KFUO program that was specifically on a chapter of Habakkuk. I mean, that's probably true of like most studies. What's going on with Habakkuk? You know, I mean, that name that you can never remember. Is it 1B? Is it 2Bs? 1K, 2K? You know, it's a little prophet, but again, as we've seen, a lot of big meaning, and it's actually rather mysterious, I think. You got a lot of people who disagree on what he's even talking about, who he's talking about. So that's kind of an important question when you're trying to figure out what a prophecy means. So yeah, really good stuff today, looking at Habakkuk chapter 1, a little bit of chapter 2, the first 5 verses there. It'll be good to read through that. Looks like we're getting told by the studio that we're having a little bit of trouble getting a hold of our guest today. Lord willing, we will reach him. But let's go ahead then and get started with a word of prayer. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Heavenly Father, we thank you that you remind us of your goodness and your constant presence in this Advent season, that you are truly Emmanuel, you are with us, that in some ways you are especially with us when things are dark and uncertain, because your promises show themselves to be all the more powerful than we ever realized. Help us to see, as we read Habakkuk today, your promises for your people, that we may be a blessing to others as you have chosen us to do. In the name of Jesus, amen. All right. So, looks like there was a little snafu actually with the communication. It happens. It's all right. We're going to go ahead and read through the chapter, and all this means, guys, is that there's lots of time then for your questions. We've already got a few that have come in on Facebook. We'll want to take a look at those. But just to remind you guys, if you are listening live, 1-800-730-2727, or if you're in St. Louis, 314-821-0850. You can also send an email to kfuo@kfuo.org. The Facebook link, facebook.com/AJ Espinosa. Yeah, we got some questions on there, and I'll actually just go ahead and post those so everyone can see them. Those will be good, though, to take a look at. But so without any further ado, let's get this chapter read, and then we'll try to figure out what is going on here. All right, so this is Habakkuk chapter 1 with those first 5 verses of chapter 2. The oracle that Habakkuk the prophet saw. O Lord, how long shall I cry for help, and you will not hear, or cry to you violence, and you will not save? Why do you make me see iniquity, and why do you idly look at wrong? Destruction and violence are before me, strife and contention arise. So the law is paralyzed, and justice never goes forth. For the wicked surround the righteous, so justice goes forth perverted. Look among the nations and see. Wonder and be astounded. For I am doing a work in your days that you would not believe if told. For behold, I am raising up the Chaldeans, that bitter and hasty nation, who march through the breadth of the earth to seize dwellings not their own. They are dreaded and fearsome. Their justice and dignity go forth from themselves. Their horses are swifter than leopards, more fierce than the evening wolves. Their horsemen press proudly on. Their horsemen come from afar. They fly like an eagle, swift to devour. They all come for violence, all their faces forward. They gather captives like sand. At kings they scoff, and at rulers they laugh. They laugh at every fortress, for they pile up earth and take it. Then they sweep by like the wind and go on, guilty men whose own might is their God. Are you not from everlasting, O Lord, my God, my Holy One? We shall not die. O Lord, you have ordained them as a judgment, and you, O rock, have established them for reproof. You, who are purer of eyes than to see evil and cannot look at wrong, why do you idly look at traitors, and remain silent when the wicked swallows up the man more righteous than he? You make mankind like the fish of the sea, like crawling things that have no ruler. He brings all of them up with a hook. He drags them out with his net. He gathers them in his drag net, so he rejoices and is glad. Therefore he sacrifices to his net and makes offerings to his drag net, for by them he lives in luxury, and his food is rich. Is he then to keep on emptying his net and mercilessly killing nations forever? I will take my stand at my watchpost and station myself on the tower and look out to see what he will say to me, and what I will answer concerning my complaint. And the Lord answered me, Write the vision, make it plain on tablets, so he may run who reads it. For still the vision awaits its appointed time. It hastens to the end, it will not lie. If it seems slow, wait for it. It will surely come. It will not delay. Behold, his soul is puffed up. It is not upright within him. But the righteous shall live by his faith. Moreover, wine is a traitor, an arrogant man who is never at rest. His greed is as wide as Sheol. Like death, he has never enough. He gathers for himself all nations and collects as his own all peoples. So I think immediately what stands out to me with Habakkuk, Habakkuk is, I feel like, one of the boldest prophets when it comes to the way that he confronts God. Again, this is a little bit like Jonah. It feels a little bit like wisdom literature, especially when you go to the end of Habakkuk. You have something that looks like a prayer, or some kind of liturgical setting. But so in the address, though, where you have this kind of theodicy theme, is God just? Is really God good, and all good, in fact? But yeah, just the question, right? He's like, hey, God, you're making us like fish, like we have no purpose. Is there any justice, any meaning in any of this? Are you just going to go on letting them kill forever? Well, the question is, who are we talking about? All right. But there's my big question. Let's go to some other questions here. We got James on the line. Good morning, brother. How are you doing? Good to hear from you. What are you thinking today?
Well, I was actually trying to catch you before your guest pastor came on, because we haven't had an opportunity to, because we've enjoyed what you've brought as moderator to the Bible study, or Thy Strong Word. Each moderator has its kind of strengths and nuances that helps our Bible study. Yeah. And so you had started to read the chapter, but I hope this is not out of line. But we wanted to ask you about your thesis and about what its intended purpose is, and some of the research. What's the intended purpose and research and discourse about? If you can kind of quickly say something about that, and what one of our members wanted to say to you was that Pastor Baker's favorite book is Habakkuk. He always says it like that.
Oh yeah,
and yeah, that's his favorite book, and we've gone over it with him on Law and Gospel, and we're going to dig up some of those questions and try to get them to you before the break. But we were trying to get into you before, to just kind of, because we really enjoy how you've moderated the Bible study, and we're going to miss you. And we'd like to hear something about your dissertation and your research. So I'll hang up on this.
Thank you, brother James. It's very kind. It's been a pleasure. It will be good, though, to just a little bit more intensely and single-mindedly focus and just get this puppy wrapped up, as my father likes to say. Talking about the dissertation here. So my PhD dissertation is more focused. Well, I'll put it this way: I'm really working in the sandbox of the Greek language, So I'm not really looking too closely at Hebrew, but I think a lot of the same ideas very much and directly apply to Hebrew. But I think that there's a real shortage, really, of scholarship that looks at this stuff that I'm looking at for Greek, and particularly for biblical Greek. It's kind of astounding, actually, I think, that there's so little work that's been done. So what is it? It's looking at, and this is something that I bring out, or try to anyway, and I don't say that I'm doing it right all the time. But when you read these sentences, right, it's a natural way of kind of, you emphasize certain words, and you kind of, your pitch goes down on other ones, right? And so depending on how you do that, there's like a contrast or there's like a comparison, right? If you're following along on the Facebook stream, you see like I've got a version here that bolds some of the words, and it's trying to say like, hey, that's a word that has been put up front in Hebrew, and so we think it's emphasized, right? So, for instance, in this one, it kind of catches the poetry in verse 10. At kings they scoff, and at rulers they laugh, right? And then following it up, they laugh at every fortress, right? So when you read it like that, you're picking up on the nuances and saying like, oh, okay, they're making a comparison. This is trying to say, they scoff at all powers, even at kings, right? And at rulers, they have contempt, when you would think that, for rulers, you would show some respect, right? So like there's these implications and all these like nuances, and so it's in the end, it's important, especially when you're looking at the sayings of our Lord Jesus, because if you read it with a little bit of different emphasis, the whole sentence just feels totally different. My quick example, just because I was getting into this with my dissertation advisor, James Veltz, the other day, in the Beatitudes, blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Is it blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God? Or is it blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God? I think it's the latter, actually, which is what very few people have suggested, actually. So when you say that, you're saying like, oh, wait, so the point is, right, everyone's going to have, some kind of encounter with God, be it good or bad, but these people will actually get to see him, which then connects it to the theology of John chapter 1, of Moses, like being able to like see God, and, the whole question of can you see God and live? I mean, all this stuff, right? All because we changed which words we kind of put the bold on. So, so that's what I'm working on. And hopefully that wasn't too long-winded. But yeah, so hopefully, the fruit of the project will be a Bible translation that you can actually pull up, and it'll tell you like how to read it, like which words are the ones you're supposed to stress, and like what kind of stress and stuff like that. I could see it as being really immensely helpful, especially for stories. So we'll see. So we looked at a little bit of that for as you were saying, Habakkuk. Not very big introduction here, right? In the Hebrew, it's just as plain as it seems in the English translation. The name though, Habakkuk. So it's challenging to say a lot of stuff at the back of your throat. But yeah, not a lot of introduction, but he just gets right into this, right? And how long, I think, is kind of the phrase, right? How long shall I cry for help? And then at the end of the chapter, right there, chapter 1, verse 17, is he then to keep on emptying his net and mercilessly killing nations forever? Right? So this is the thing. It seems like this bad guy is just going on and on and on and on. Is anyone ever going to stop the killing? And I was struck this morning right before we start the program. We have the KFUO news update from Kip Allen, and he was mentioning some of Biden's picks that he's announcing, right, to work in those cabinet positions, and one of them being very staunchly pro-abortion or pro-choice, right, as they would describe themselves. And we in our own nation, we feel that way, I think, right? Will they go on mercilessly killing forever? So we can relate to this, and I think, in fact, that in some ways, at every stage of the game in the history of God's people, you've always got this feeling of it seems like the bad guys are getting away with it. It seems like they're laughing all the way to the bank. It seems like they got blood on their hands, but they're not being judged. What's going on, God? You said you're going to judge the wicked. Okay, when? So very, very bold question here. And I think it does actually have a lot in common with Jonah, not just the boldness or the kind of wisdom literature angle either. Okay, so let's just go ahead and just tackle this question head on. So who is he talking about? And then if we can get that, I think then we'll have a better chance at understanding one of the most quoted Bible verses, right, from the Old Testament is amazing, right? Right here, the righteous shall live by faith, comes up in a big way in Paul. You've got it, in Romans. You've got it in Galatians. You got something that doesn't sound unlike it in the Gospel of John. You've got you got the same quote pretty much in Hebrews, even, right? So it's a huge, big idea, and it comes from this book that it feels like we kind of just don't even know what to do with. So, okay, let's go ahead then and take a look at this. So the next part, I think, and this is the thing I believe that throws people off. The ESV here says, "Woe to the Chaldeans." All right, Chaldeans is a word that is typically interpreted as referring to the Babylonians, right? And we're kind of used to this, that it seems like in the Old Testament especially, there's a lot of different ways of referring to people, right? Kind of like we saw last time, actually, when we were talking with Pastor Schenk, looking at 2 Kings, right? You can refer to the north as Ephraim. You can refer to the north as, for that matter, Joseph. You can refer to the north as Israel, like the northern kingdom, right? You can refer to it as Samaria, just refer to it by the capital, right? So, I mean, there's so many different ways of referring to these things. The Chaldeans, in some parts, particularly I think in Genesis, the word can refer to sorcerers or certain kinds of like astrologers or something like this, court magicians. But yeah, in a lot of places later, it usually just basically means the Babylonians. Okay, so is this a prophecy? Is this a complaint about the Babylonians? Not so fast. All right, I'm just going to go ahead and keep reading because, why not? So this is from verse 6 then, chapter 2. "Shall not all these take up their taunt against him with scoffing riddles for him and say, Woe to him who heaps up what's not his own, for how long, and loads himself with pledges? Will not your debtors suddenly arise, and those awake who will make you tremble? Then you will be spoil for them, because you have plundered many nations. All the remnant of the people shall plunder you. For the blood of man and violence to the earth, to cities and all who dwell in them. Woe to him who gets evil gain for his house, to set his nest on high, to be safe from the reach of harm. You've devised shame for your house by cutting off many peoples. You have forfeited your life. For the stone will cry out from the wall, and the beam from the woodwork respond. Woe to him who builds a town with blood and founds a city on iniquity. Behold, is it not from the Lord of hosts that peoples labor merely for fire, and nations weary themselves for nothing? For the earth will be filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. Woe to him who makes his neighbors drink, you who pour out your wrath and make them drunk in order to gaze at their nakedness. You will have your fill of the shame instead of glory. Drink yourself and show your uncircumcision. The cup in the Lord's right hand will come around to you, and utter shame will come upon your glory. The violence done to Lebanon will overwhelm you, as will the destruction of the beasts that terrified them, for the blood of man and violence to the earth, to cities and all who dwell in them. So you see this, like this prophecy of reversal, and it's a lot of potent images here. You got potables, right? Right here, the cup of wrath. Professor Robbie's commentary in the Yale Anchor series on Obadiah really gets into that. It's fantastic. If memory serves, I'm getting my wires crossed. It's definitely Professor Robbie, though, who's written extensively on this cup of wrath idea. the idea is there's a metaphor of drunkenness with anger, which I think we can see how that makes sense. But there's this reversal. It feels kind of Magnificat-like, like all the stuff that you've done is going to come back around on you. We're going to see that in Esther in a big way, that reversal. You have that same kind of theme very prominently in Revelation in the New Testament here. Okay, so you got all this woe, okay, but interesting, yeah. The heading says it's for the Chaldeans, but you'll notice, did we ever read the word Chaldeans? Right? No, actually. Right. So this is interesting. So how'd the ESV say that all those woes were for the Chaldeans? Well, what they're doing, right, is they're going back into chapter 1, where it says, where was it here? Where God answers Habakkuk's first complaint. And he says in verse 6, "Behold, I am raising up the Chaldeans." So the logic goes, and this is how a lot of people have taken it, Habakkuk is at first complaining about something, someone, unclear. God says he's going to raise up the Chaldeans. Habakkuk says, whoa, hang on, but they're pretty nasty, terrible people too. And then you get, his answer there towards the end of chapter 1. And then God responds, well, it's okay, because I'll wipe them out too. I will also deal with the Chaldeans. And that's what these woes are doing. I think there's a few problems with that interpretation. It's not a terrible interpretation. I don't think you're going to come up with like heresy at the end of the day if you take it. I just don't think it's right. Let's take a look at some of the details here. So first of all, who is he complaining about first? Well, see, I don't know. Like, I don't think that if you say it's the Chaldeans, you say that we're really talking about the Babylonians, right? Then the logical thing to say would be that he's complaining about the Assyrians, right? That the Assyrians are the initial ones here at the beginning, right? The law is paralyzed, justice never goes forth, right? And that they're the bad guys. And then God would say, okay, well, the Assyrians are a problem. Well, I'll raise up the Chaldeans, the Babylonians, and they will deal with those nasty Assyrians. Okay, that makes sense. But interesting what he says, though, right? He says, "For I am doing a work in your days that you would not believe if told." So the point there is that, hey, I'm going to tell you that I'm going to raise up the Babylonians to defeat the Assyrians. But when I tell you that, you're going to think to yourself, what? The Babylonians are going to defeat the Assyrians? See, and this is important because the Babylonians, right, before the rise of what historians refer to as the Neo-Babylonian Empire, the empire that ended up, with Nebuchadnezzar and all this, right, that ended up destroying Jerusalem. Babylon did not look, as a people, like the Chaldeans, right, not the place, did not look like they were going to be a world superpower that was going to do all of this. But what ends up happening is that they end up making all these alliances, and they are just they know how to get things done, and they stage this revolt basically against the Assyrians. And what ends up happening, and this ends up being a good chunk of Isaiah then, is that the very people that they had an alliance with that helped them seize power, they end up turning on and enslaving and taking advantage of and all the rest. And so in that way, they end up being really hated, right? So you can see how some of those these critiques here could really fit. Maybe okay, yeah, like that sounds like the Chaldeans. But does it follow that God's punishing the Chaldeans in chapter 2? See, I think that's the disconnect that we think he's turning on them then. All right, hold that thought. It's time for our break, everybody. We're looking at Habakkuk on Thy Strong Word. We'll be right back.
It's called the Stockdale Paradox, facing the brutal facts of reality while never losing faith in how the story ends. Dr. Michael Ziegler finds something like it in the Bible's book of Daniel. He calls it the Prophet's Paradox, and it could provide the word of encouragement you need in the midst of this chaotic year. This week on The Lutheran Hour.
Sundays at 12:30 and 5 p.m. on Worldwide KFUO.
Cross Defense is the show where we talk about curious topics to excite the imagination, equip the mind, and comfort the soul with God's Word. Join me, Pastor Tyrell Bramwell, every Monday at 2 p.m. Central on KFUO Radio, or anytime on KFUO.org, or even your favorite podcast app. My friends, our foe is a fierce enemy. Our only defense is Christ on the cross.
Welcome back, everybody, to Thy Strong Word. I'm Pastor A.J. Espinosa. We're looking at Habakkuk, particularly chapter 1, but as we went ahead and read a little bit more into chapter 2 here, a short little book. And yeah, who are we talking about? We just started talking about a little bit about the Assyrians and the Babylonians. I'm not sure if word order is going to come to the rescue. We were talking a little bit about my dissertation emphasis with James earlier. Thanks again for your kind words, brother. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, there's a couple things I want to bring out here. I do think that a lot of people are not, they're kind of jumping, there's a disconnect here, I think. If you've got a question or a comment, maybe just share an interpretation that you've heard. These are all fair game. 1-800-730-2727. Or if you're in St. Louis, 314-821-0850. You can also send an email to kfuo@kfuo.org. Hop on the live stream, facebook.com/AJ Espinosa. Just posted the questions I got earlier before the program. They were just sent to me directly. So here's the first question. You talked about ending the Assyrian story arc. Was Habakkuk written before the Babylonians, Chaldeans, defeated the Assyrians, or after? Okay, yeah, and that's kind of exactly what we're talking about. Yeah, good question. Next question. Why does God raise up an evil people to do his work? And then, why does he talk about how he will topple them in the next chapter? Okay, yeah, there's the thing. I don't think he is. So, yeah, those questions are spot on. That's exactly what we're getting at. Before we get more into that, I want to make sure that we thank our underwriters at the Lutheran Heritage Foundation, lhfmissions.org. Thank you guys for your support of Thy Strong Word. All right, so where were we? Okay, so it seems like, we have a decent line of thought going. That first we've got the Assyrians as a problem, then the Babylonians seem to be the answer, that God's going to raise up these Chaldeans. Okay, so the comparison I wanted to make really quick, it says that you wouldn't believe it if I told you, right? So the same thing happens in Isaiah, right? That if you guys remember when we were looking at Isaiah, and the same thing happens in 1st and 2nd Kings and Chronicles, that Hezekiah is dealing with this Assyrian invasion. They're going through all over Judah, destroying the countryside. That's where we get the imagery, or some of the imagery anyway, in Isaiah of just things being overrun, the cities being reduced to a wilderness, right? And so anyway, he's holed up in Jerusalem. Jerusalem is just trying to eke out this final last stand. And God miraculously causes some disarray in the Assyrian ranks. They got to go back home. Jerusalem stands. Also probably helps, we know from history, that Hezekiah did end up offering a rather large lump sum tribute catch-up payment. And so the Assyrians were like, okay, we got something. We can go home with pride. Again, we've talked about saving face in ancient culture. So he lets them save face, right? They're able to go home and call it a victory, and Hezekiah is able to call it a victory. Everyone wins, right? Win-win. So what's interesting, though, is in the following chapter, Isaiah critiques Hezekiah because following that, Hezekiah reaches out to Babylon. The king of Babylon comes and takes a look at, the Chaldeans, I should be more accurate, come and he shows them around Jerusalem, and then Isaiah says, okay, so you're thinking about making an alliance with the very, very ominous words. And at the time, Isaiah is kind of couching it like, you wouldn't think that. You think that you're just talking to another little guy like you, like Judah, but they're not going to be a little guy forever. Okay, so there's this common theme of you're not going to see this coming. Also, what's else it say in verse 8? Their horses are swifter than leopards. This is also pretty interesting because when you look at the book of Daniel, right, you have those 4 different beasts. Well, what's the beast, right, that you get named in connection with Babylon, right, with Nebuchadnezzar? If you look at it's this really interesting description. It's this winged leopard. It's this leopard with eagle's wings, and then at some point it's made to have the wings plucked, and it comes and it stands up like a man, right? So I mean, very clearly referring to Nebuchadnezzar, how he went through his period of kind of going crazy, acting like an animal, then he kind of gets back in his right mind. Also, perhaps referring to the, in a certain sense, how the Babylonians kind of went from just bloodthirsty, crazy, betraying their own allies stuff to, later, became a center of learning, mathematics, astronomy, things like this. So there's a lot of things there, but using the leopards, the swift leopard language here, right? Their horses are swifter than leopards. That also is a way that, Daniel talks about the Babylonians. And then later, they fly like an eagle, swift to devour. Again, eagle. So 2 of the animals that Daniel uses in connection with the Chaldeans, the Babylonians. So, so there's a lot of things there that, it makes sense that we're talking about the Babylonians. But is he still talking about the Babylonians when God answers in chapter 2? See, this is the question here. Let me see here. We just got some questions from James here. So is the king's posture, wait a second here. These look like questions from yesterday. So I don't know, Kip, if you could just take a look at that really quick. Make sure there's not a double email or something. Okay, so there's the question. So God says, hey, look, the Babylonians, I'm going to raise them up. You won't believe it, right? But it's going to happen. And then so what does Habakkuk say? Well, see, I think Habakkuk's complaint here is saying, okay, well, take a look at this here in verse 11 and in verse 12. Are you not from everlasting, O Lord, my God, my Holy One? We shall not die. I think there's some really good textual stuff, but that's a long tradition of reading that is you shall not die, right? Like you are immortal, basically, which is actually just making his complaint more pointed. Like, God, you're immortal, but we die all the time, and so would you please do something about this? You don't, it's like you're immortal, so you don't feel this as keenly as we do, but this is a problem. It says, O Lord, you have ordained them as a judgment, and you, O rock, have established them for a reproof, right? And then, so verse 13, why do you idly look at traitors and remain silent when the wicked swallows up the man more righteous than he? See, the thought is that he's talking about the Babylonians. Like, hey, why would you raise them up, God, and use them when they are traitors and they're bad guys? I don't think that's what he's saying. He's saying, God, okay, you've established them as a reproof. You're going to use the Chaldeans, or you're going to raise them up, stir them up, you said. When? I think actually Habakkuk is saying, okay, God, that's great talk. Show some action, right? Actions speak louder than words, God. Yeah, you say you're going to stir up the Babylonians. I don't see any Babylonians. So Habakkuk is actually saying, God, will you please do something now about the Assyrians and not just sometime in the distant hypothetical future? Now, that changes the reading quite a bit. So then everything Habakkuk is complaining about in chapter 1 is not actually the Babylonians as such, but the Assyrians still, which means that Habakkuk is consistently complaining about the Assyrians, which aligns him with Jonah, right, who's sent to go and to prophesy to Nineveh, that's the Assyrian capital, prophesy to the Assyrians, but Jonah's like, God, no, you should destroy them now while you have the chance. See, like there's both of them, actually, these short little 4-chapter prophets, right, are both just saying, hey, God, you should be destroying the Assyrians now and not just sometime when you get around to it or you give them a chance to repent, right? So you actually see them lining up really nicely. So take a look at this here, where God then says, look what he says, right? Write the vision, make it plain on tablets. This is chapter 2, right? We read this. So he may run who reads it, for still the vision awaits its appointed time. Right? This is actually maybe where word order does help. The word still there is actually the first word of this clause. For still, right? Emphasizing, well, kind of coming as an answer. Like, no, Jonah, Habakkuk, both of them really, right? It's still coming. It's still going to happen, right? So he's answering the impatience. The vision awaits its appointed time. It hastens to the end. It will not lie. If it seems slow, wait for it, right? So before this became like the big phrase of How I Met Your Mother, right? The TV program. God said it first. So if it seems slow, wait for it. It will surely come. So his answer is saying, hey, look, it seems like I'm taking my sweet time raising up the Babylonians to deal with your Assyrian problem. If it seems slow, wait for it. It's going to happen. And then this changes the way you read verse 4, right? Behold, his soul is puffed up. It is not upright within him, but the righteous shall live by his faith. All right? So there's actually an answer here too. He's saying, Habakkuk, yeah, I know this is bad, right? These Assyrians, they go on perverting justice, right? Justice is paralyzed, like he said in chapter 1. They're killing righteous people left and right. But you know what? The righteous shall live. So in other words, they will survive, Habakkuk. They're not going to be wiped out. I'm not going to let it happen. See, now that just changes things, right? Like Habakkuk, you're telling me that you think that I'm going so slow with my salvation that by the time the Babylonians show up, there won't be any righteous left to be rescued. No, the righteous will survive. They are going to make it. They will survive the Assyrians, Habakkuk. Stop complaining. So this is pretty interesting. Dig into the language a little bit more. Okay, what does it say in verse 4 more particularly here? This is neat. So one thing here to note is that it's the singular form, right? So it's and this is what some people have brought out as a messianic prophecy then. Which is interesting in Paul, right? The righteous one shall live by his faith. Okay, we'll get there in a second. But then also consider the word faith. It says in Hebrew, ba'emunah, so it's benumato, right? So it's plural, which is not actually like faith, like belief, or like creed or something, but this is actually the form for faithfulness or honesty. Keeping faith, by faith keeping. The righteous shall live by, you could say uprightness, honesty, truthfulness. Truthfulness could be a good way of putting it. It's an interesting form of the word. So when you take all of that, this gets really interesting then when you look at how Paul quotes it later, and then you try applying this to the Lord Jesus, right? Because if you want to say, like, oh, well, the righteous individual, right, will live because of faith, right? Like, because they believe in Jesus, that's what makes a person really righteous, and then that righteous person will live. Well, that is a little bit distant from actually what Habakkuk is in the first place getting at here. Because A, we're talking about actually faithfulness or truthfulness, and then B, it's the righteous surviving, right? Like, no, the righteous will survive the Assyrians, Habakkuk. Like, they will not all be wiped out, which is to say that this is actually a singular generic. To say it's not that this is a promise for each and every single righteous person, because clearly, guys, right? When God speaks these words to Habakkuk, a lot more righteous people were going to die. Let's just be honest. Whether that was in the situation with the Assyrians or with the Babylonians, a lot of righteous people were going to die. The point here is like the righteous and kind of this kind of generic or collective generic, really. Like righteous people are still going to be around. Righteous people will still survive. There will still be this righteousness. So that's to say, it's really a lot like Isaiah also, where Isaiah talks about there being a stump of Jesse, that there is going to be some remnant. There's going to be something left that you can have shoots sprout from. Like, it's not all going to be gone. Now, see, if we interpret it that way, then it actually ends up turning messianic, I think, in kind of a different way. So instead of like it talking about like righteous individuals today having life or prosperity or something because of faith in Jesus, right? It's more like there is going to be this faithful remnant that will survive and will sprout a shoot, and that is Jesus. And it's going to happen because of faithfulness, because of truthfulness, right? Like there is going to be this faithful, truthful germ that is not going to get wiped out, not by the Assyrians, not later by the Babylonians when they do actually come for Jerusalem, not by the Medes, not by the Persians, not by the Macedonians, not by the Seleucids, not by the Romans, right? There is going to be this seed that survives. So when the Lord Jesus comes onto the scene, this is the fulfillment. Hey, look at there. We see him. Indeed, righteous Judah has survived because look, there he is, right? This is some theologians talk about this as Israel reduced to one, right? Like there is a remnant. And we know it wasn't just him. There were obviously many people who followed our Lord, many people who answered John the Baptist's cry for repentance, right? But there's going to be something that survives the Assyrians. And when you see Jesus come onto the scene, it shows righteousness surviving the Assyrians in spades. Because not only is it like, oh, well, there's some righteousness left, right? Though it was really corrupted and perverted and polluted, and we're never going to be as righteous as, Josiah or Hezekiah was. No. The most righteous one we've ever seen, actually. Right? So righteousness not just survives, but thrives. And of course, you see the same thing as a big theme in the church, right? That the church gets persecuted, right? The first, one of the first 7 deacons, Stephen, right, stoned to death right there in Jerusalem, right? Jesus himself is killed. The church, 40 years after all those events, right? The church is concentrated in Jerusalem. Most of Christianity, as you would call it, is there in Jerusalem. Jerusalem's wiped out. Again, so after the Babylonians, right? So it's like, hang on, are the righteous going to survive? Well, yes, we will survive. We have survived, not only survived, but thrived. That God uses all of these things, and not only do his people hang on, not only does the church hang on, not only does the truth hang on, but it goes bigger, it grows. So I encourage you to look at this not so focused on the individual and the individual belief, but looking more at God's people as a whole, that this is a promise that, guys, some of us are going to be persecuted, some of us are going to be put in jail, some of us are going to be killed, right? But you know what, guys? This church that we're a part of, this body of Christ, we will survive, just as the Lord Jesus, right, not only survived, but then this is the amazing thing, right? Because it does say in Hebrew, that it is literally shall live. So the other way of taking this, right, is not just that he shall survive the Assyrians, but even if the Assyrians kill him, he'll come back to life, right? Because that's the other way that you can live after something mortal, a mortal wound, right? It's like you barely escape by the skin of your teeth, right? Or it kills you, but you're resurrected. So I see it in resurrection terms ultimately being fulfilled. That the righteousness seen in Jesus Christ, on behalf of the whole people of God, it goes on, and Jesus Christ, he lives because of that faithfulness. And this gets to a theme that's, it's an interesting theme that you see. You see it in Hebrews, that God answered the Lord Jesus' prayers because of his faithfulness, right? Because the Lord Jesus is faithful, God did not let his Holy One see decay. So Yeah. Good stuff. So seeing this really, I mean, I think in the end, if you look at it this way, it gets more Christ focused. So we're talking about how Jesus makes sure that the people of God survive despite all this stuff. All right, that is good. Let's look at some of the questions in a little bit more detail here, right? So the question then of timeline, chronology, right? Well, I think that it's hard to say when things are written down, right? Because it's like there's a question of when was this composed orally? When was it finally put down on paper, so to speak, right? Not that there was paper. It was either like vellum or papyrus, right? So those are kind of difficult questions. But just by the text, you can ask the question, what time is depicted in this conversation? And clearly this is depicting a conversation happening before the Babylonians come, right? Because if God's going to say, hey, I'm going to stir up the Babylonians, and Habakkuk's like, when, God? And then God says, don't worry, wait for it, it's coming, right? So before they show up, I think is how you have to take how this is going. Though there's an argument to be made if you scroll down with me to Habakkuk. So you got Habakkuk 3 then. And it's very interesting here. Like Habakkuk, did I say there are 4 chapters and 3 chapters? Habakkuk 3 is like a, well, I mean, actually, it's a helpful heading here. Habakkuk's prayer, right? It feels rather different. You could take a look at Habakkuk 3 rather, and say this is maybe then a mature reflection, right? Taking a prayer of Habakkuk and kind of like praying it back then, saying, hey, look, God was right. The Babylonians did come, right? The Babylonians did, after all, take care of the Assyrians like God said they would. So we could, we don't have time to like discuss all of Habakkuk 3, but so in that sense too, like this could represent multiple stages of stuff that came from Habakkuk, right? Like stuff where he complained early on, and then later when he, or perhaps even just when his prayer was kind of just appropriated by people later, right? Looking back on it and saying, hey guys, Habakkuk was right, and his prayer that he prayed, it's pretty fitting for this occasion when we look back on this, right? So that makes it hard to say in terms of like when it was writing, but I think you can safely talk about that the complaint and the responses are before the Babylonians show up. Let's see. There's one other thing I want to bring up though too. So kind of getting into this like whole thing about like who is he talking about? So someone might say, well, no, hang on a second. That makes sense if you're just looking at Habakkuk, but what happens when you look at some of the other prophets that look very, very similar? Doesn't seem like they're talking about God raising up the Babylonians against the Assyrians. No, it seems like they're actually going to be attacking the Babylonians. So let me do a search here. I've got this in a note here. Because let me see here. It's in, you see some really interesting parallels with some of the other prophets. So we already talked about it, like in Isaiah here. Let me see here. I'm not sure where that note went to. I'm sure I'll find it like as soon as we're done today. There's another prophet that basically it's probably Isaiah too. That in connection to all this says something very similar to Habakkuk chapter 2. In fact, maybe we should look at the footnotes. There might be something here there might be something in Isaiah here that goes on saying like a lot like this here. Where you look at the other prophets and they prophesy something that sounds almost exactly like Habakkuk, but they actually specifically mention Babylon, right? Or I think actually you mentioned Babylon as like a place name, right? Let's see, it's not Isaiah chapter 30, though. Interesting, there's a parallel here, and then it says the Assyrians will be terror stricken. So that I think does actually kind of support that thesis there. Let's check Isaiah 8 here. I don't think it's Isaiah 8. I think that's too early on. Yeah, no, Isaiah 8 is really early on. This is talking about when Assyria is still going to come and wipe everything out. So that's I only actually entirely know about putting the footnote there. Yeah, I'm not going to find it, guys. Well, I'll post the link on Facebook afterwards. But there's a place in I think it's Isaiah where it's like, hey, they're going to take Babylon, right? When I stir up these guys, and so people would put that as evidence and say, hey, look at the parallel, right? Clearly, when God is talking about this in chapter 2, he's not talking about judging the Assyrians. He's talking about judging the Babylonians. Because look, it says in the other prophet, attack Babylon. Stop. Pause. Who was in control of Babylon before the Babylonians? Yeah, we don't think about this, but Babel, right? Very ancient city, right? Think of the Tower of Babel in Genesis, a little bit before the Babylonians, as we think of them, right? So before the Chaldeans became like this superpower, who was in control of Babylon? The Assyrians. Yeah, that's right. So actually, it makes sense to talk about the other prophets saying, I'm going to raise up the Chaldeans, and they're going to take Babylon from Assyria, and they're going to make it their capital. I mean, actually, I think the pieces fit even better that way. Okay, but so look at the big question, though, right? Why does God raise up evil people to do his work? Why does he seem to take so long to answer, right? God doesn't actually say here. He says it'll happen. If it seems slow, wait. But so why does he do this? I mean, I think at the end of the day, there isn't like a ready-made answer, because I think really that question is the question that Job was answering, right? Which is like, hey, who are we to be asking that, right? Or rather, who are we to be judging God by some kind of external source or standard of righteousness, as if there is a standard more righteous than God himself? That doesn't really make much sense. So it is actually, on a fundamental level, kind of not even really of reflecting clear thinking to like challenge God on righteousness, right? But I will say, just in terms of looking at the story, there's a lot of mercy involved, right? I mean, think about this. Like God, again in Jonah, by waiting to judge the Assyrians, he gives a generation of Assyrians a chance to repent, right? By using the Persians, right? Later, by using the Greeks, by using the Romans, God gives all these other people chances to repent. I mean, like, because he could, just send down the legion of angels and wipe everything out, right? I mean, isn't that what Satan says, right? Why doesn't God just send the angels now, Jesus? The thief on the cross, like not the good one, the other one. Let God rescue you and us too. Well, why doesn't God do that? Well, because if he did all that and he just sent all the angels in right now, would there have been mercy for others? Would there have been mercy for us? Right? So indeed, maybe there is something unjust about God waiting so long and taking his time, but it's not unjust because it's not merciful enough, but because it's too merciful for us who receive the opportunity to repent, because God waits, because he's long-suffering. And we suffer, but we will survive in Jesus Christ. The church goes on. His truth goes on. His word is strong. All right. We got a pre-recorded psalm for you guys tomorrow, and then we're moving on to another chapter of a new book. Until next week, then, everybody, I'm Pastor A.J. Espinosa. Peace.
National mission in cooperation with Worldwide KFUO, the official broadcast ministry of the LCMS. Your support is vital for this program to continue. You can make a gift safe, secure, and easily online at kfuo.org. Thank you for listening and supporting Thy Strong Word.